All right, and Miss Paige and Mr. Kyle, if you'll help me keep an eye on the chat box for this evening, I would appreciate it.
Will do.
Gotcha.
All right, okay. So today we're going to focus on outdoor backpacks and equipment for our consumer education project and our scenarios. So looking at outdoor backpacks first, we're going to kind of break it down by some of the features that we're looking for, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth to them, okay? So whenever we're looking at outdoor backpacks, the big things that we need to keep in mind is these are very variable products. So the length of trip and the capacity are going to be very much related to each other. The fit of the pack is going to be very important in the scenario. The frame, features, and accessories are all going to kind of fit in with the fit and the length of the trip and type of trip that you're doing, okay? So whenever we're talking about the length of the trip and capacity, so the capacity of backpacks are typically measured in liters, okay? So if we were doing a weekend trip, so maybe 1 to 3 overnight stays, we would be looking at a 35 to 50 liter pack. These are going to be some of the smallest packs that you can purchase aside from climbing packs. The challenge with a weekend sized pack is it's going to require a lot of discipline. You're going to have to be very conscious about what you're packing to make sure that you have enough of everything that you need to bring with you and you're fully prepared. Most typically it's going to be used by more experienced packers that know what they need and are comfortable without certain supplies. Okay. A multi-day trip is typically going to be a 3 to 5 night stay. At that point, we need a larger 50 to 80 liter pack. These are typically a little bit more popular and are a really good broad spectrum product for warm weather trips where you don't need a whole lot of extra clothing or padding or things like that to worry about. And then an extended sized pack or extended stay would be if you're staying somewhere for 5 or more nights. You're typically going to have a 70+ liter style backpack. It might have a few more features on it. It's generally going to be preferred for if you have a trip where children are going to be coming along and they can't necessarily carry some of the load with them. And then also anytime your cold weather gear is needed, just because cold weather gear is going to take up a lot of extra space. And then climbing packs are kind of almost what you would think of as like a day backpack. So it's a little bit more of a moderate capacity. It's going to be for like a quick day hike. You maybe bring some water and some snacks with you, that type of a thing. Okay. So whenever we are fitting a backpack, the fit is very important because that is going to help you support that large amount of weight over the time of your trip. Okay. So typically we're going to measure to fit the torso length, not your overall height, because we want the backpack itself to rest on the hip area. So your hips should support about 80% of the weight of the backpack. Some of the other features that may help would be maybe an adjustable suspension system. So they have some adjustable packs that can actually be modified to fit to multiple torsos, especially if you're kind of in between sizes, you don't fit one size or another. The problem is those adjustable features typically add a little bit of weight to the pack, okay? Another issue that people have is if they have a really narrow waist, sometimes they don't always fit those standard waist sizes and might need a little bit of a smaller size. Again, with the hip belts and things like that, the area that straps around your hips, it is possible to swap out different sizes and adjust that fit so that your hips are better capable of bearing that weight, okay? Something that we do need to be careful of with backpack fits is typically the generic design is made to fit a man's body, okay? So depending on the scenario, we'll have to pay attention to the criteria, and women and youth specific fits are available. So again, that'll kind of depend on what scenario you're judging and what type of product that we're looking for, okay? And then just highlighting again, the adjustment straps, there's other straps where you can adjust the height of the load on your shoulders. how closely they fit to your body and things like that. Those would be features that are important to a good fit as well. Okay. Another area that we need to look at with backpacks is we need to look at the type of frame. So there's 3 different types of frames that we typically think of: internal, external, and then frameless. Okay. Most of the packs that are sold are going to be the internal frames that are sort of designed to stabilize the person who's carrying them. That way they don't have to worry about it. Their body's not working as hard to stabilize the load. Okay. And again, those internal frames help to make sure that your hips are bearing most of the load, so you're not actually hurting your lower back or your upper back in that case. Okay. External frames are going to be better if you're carrying a larger, heavier, irregular load. A lot of times, if you're dealing with large inflatables or larger equipment that you wouldn't normally use, those might be helpful, especially with securing those loads and strapping them on. They also typically offer a little bit more ventilation, and they typically are a little bit more customizable with some of the organization. Okay, you have a little bit more freedom for where you're strapping things on and things like that because the frame's on the outside. And then frameless backpacks are typically going to be the types of frames that we use for really, really light loads. You're not really carrying a large number of things. It's going to be for those shorter trips. Okay. Those are particularly important if you really care about the weight bearing and you don't want to carry a whole lot on your back all day. Okay. With our backpacks, there's lots of different features and accessories that can come with the pack that are going to be dependent on what you need and what we're looking for given the criteria of the scenario. So a lot of times backpacks are going to have one main compartment. Some of them will come with separate compartments or multiple compartments. Some of them will even have a sleeping bag specific compartment where you can store your sleeping items. Some, not all, may have some waterproof pockets or storage. There may be some additional pockets on the outside or inside that allow you to organize your items. Ventilation can also be a key. There can also be some additional padding that could be added for long-term wear or comfort. There could be an option for adding a hydration unit or hydration reservoir so that you can carry some water with you. You could have rainproof material or rain covers. Okay. Do y'all have any questions about backpacks? And then David, did I miss any of the criteria for backpacks that y'all normally look for?
I think you covered it pretty well.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and we'll jump into sharing our backpack scenario. Okay. And then before we get started, will it help y'all a little bit if I read the scenario out to you? I know sometimes your screen is a little bit smaller. Does anybody want it read, or do y'all just want the opportunity to read the scenario first? All right, the masseurs say not read. Okay. If anyone has trouble seeing it, just let me know and we'll work on that. Okay. Okay. So when I share the screen, I'll get my timer ready. I'm going to give y'all 6 minutes to judge the scenario, and then we'll go over the correct placing and the reasons. Okay. Get my timer ready. All right, and y'all, 6 minutes starts now. All right, you'll have 2 more minutes. All right, 1 more minute. All right, y'all, time is up. Okay, y'all do me a favor, go ahead and put your ranking in the chat box. And then if you want to use the annotate feature or the chat box, let me know which of these products you think best meets the criteria of the scenario. All right. Ooh, Jackson figured out how to put his name. Cool. Learn something new every time. All right. So what were some of the main criteria that we were looking for in this scenario? Y'all can unmute or type it in the chat. Okay, so Trey says less than $200. So we have our budget. Okay, what else were we looking for? Okay, we needed lightweight. We had a specific size measurement that we were looking for. All right. All right, so why was number 2 the top result here? Okay, we got lightweight. Fits the 30 to 42 inch waist. It's large and under $200. Okay. All right. It fit everyone. Exactly. All right. So let's go ahead and we're going to clear our slate. And then what would be the second best product to meet this? What do y'all think? Okay, 3. All right. All right. That's what we got too. Okay. It's the next lightest weight. It fits both the people and the price. Exactly. Okay. So what would be, I think we touched a little bit on grants last time. What would be a grant that we could give to 3 over product number 2? Okay, it would be less expensive. Exactly. All right, so our bottom pair. David, do you want to take over and explain our 2 bottom products?
So the bottom pair I placed as item number 4 over item number 1. I placed item number 1 last due to the fact that Joe's waist size was 42 inches and the pack only fit up to 33 inches. So he wouldn't be able to comfortably wear the pack. So while they were looking to spend less than $200 and item number 4 was $60 over their budget, item number 1 would have been virtually a waste of money for them due to the fact that Joe wouldn't be able to wear the backpack.
All right. I think that covers it. Okay. Thank you, David. Do any of y'all have any questions about this scenario?
So even though the other one is out of price, it said they're looking to spend less. So that means they didn't necessarily only have $200. So that's why 1 would be over 4 too, right?
Well, 4 would be over number 1 because they're looking to spend less than $200, but it's not that they have $200 to spend.
Right.
So it's about the wording.
Yep.
Yeah. So you caught that and I missed it. So yay, David, you beat your mom.
Yep. So, and that'll be key whenever y'all are looking at budget. So kind of like we talked about last time, especially where the money is concerned, there's going to be a lot of different phrasing for how they have their budget set up. If they're looking to spend less than $200 or they would like to spend less than $200, it's not really a hard budget. It would be a little bit different if they said they only had, $200 to spend or something to that effect. Okay, good
So
catch,
if it
David.
was only they had $200, then 4 would be dead last and then 1 would be third.
Yes, so that would place 4 over 1 in that case if they had a hard budget.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let me switch back over to my presentation. Okay. So our next piece of outdoor equipment that we're going to cover, and it'll probably be our last one for tonight, will be our camp stoves. Okay. They used to hit this category quite a bit. And there's a few different features that we'll look at. So size and weight, the number of burners, and fuel type are typically the 3 main features that we'll see. So for size and weight, it's going to really depend on what you're using this item for. So a lot of those scenario clues are going to help you figure out what the ideal product is going to be. They can range anywhere from a few ounces to multiple pounds. Okay. And then whenever we're backpacking, Typically, if we're going to have to carry something in a pack on our back, we want it to be as small and lightweight as possible because we're wanting to conserve as much room in the pack as possible for other for other items like our food, our sleeping bags, things like that. Okay. Now, obviously, if you're out camping for a night or you're using a different facility available that might have additional stove space or a campfire, and you've got your full car to bring supplies, then you're going to be less concerned about the size and weight of the item, and you're going to be more concerned about the other features. Okay. So one of the main features with camp stoves that you'll have to pay attention to are the number of burners. So they can range from single burners to multiple burners. Usually, I think in most of our scenarios, we're going to see 1, 2, or 4 burners be available. Okay, sometimes you might see I think it's like a cooking range or like a flat top, but typically we don't encounter a whole lot of those. So the advantage of single burners are typically that they're going to be better for backpacking because they save more space. They weigh a lot less than the multiple burners because they're a little bit more flexible in their design. They are better for simple cooking. So if you're just boiling water, if you're just preparing a single pot meal, something along those lines, okay? Multiple burners are going to be better for large meals or more complicated recipes where you need more than one burner or you're trying to accomplish multiple things at the same time. The disadvantage is they're going to weigh more and they're going to take up a lot more space physically. All right, the other thing that we have to factor in here is fuel type and fuel amount, depending on what you're wanting to accomplish, okay? So most of the time, we're gonna see a cartridge type fuel, and these are typically, they might call them canisters or cartridges, but they're gonna use a compressed form of gas in their own container, okay? So they're already gonna be filled. Going to be filled with propane, butane, or isobutane. These compressed gases, because they're a gas, are going to be lighter in weight than other fuels. They're going to be a little bit less maintenance just because they're prepackaged. You don't really have to worry about them other than hooking them up. The fuel burns a little bit cleaner. There's not as much smoke or anything else associated with them. One of the advantages or disadvantages is canister or cartridge can't be refilled because it's a pressure. And it can be sold as a stove that connects to the cartridge or a stove with a removable cartridge, okay? So you'll have to pay attention to those details. Whenever we're talking about liquid fuel types, typically we're talking about needing to use a stove that has a built-in refillable fuel tank with it. They're a little bit more difficult to use and a little bit more high maintenance because they're refillable. They might need to be cleaned. You'll have to maintain them. The liquids are typically heavier physically than the compressed gas cartridges. And then usually whenever we are dealing with liquid fuels, we actually have to prime the fuel line before we light the burner, okay? So there's a little bit more work involved. And then something that we have to be conscious of whenever we are working with these fuels is that depending on the type of fuel, they all have different temperatures that they burn at. And some of them do not work well in freezing temperatures. So in particular, butane just doesn't perform well at temperatures below freezing, so less than 32 degrees Fahrenheit. The compressed gases in general, if it gets cold enough, will actually start to revert into a liquid form, okay? And then you might lose gas pressure and cooking pressure and fuel pressure, okay? So some other features that you might want to look at in some of the descriptions. So typically whenever we're camping, we're talking about boiling water. So whenever we're looking at the features, we might actually want to know how many minutes it's going to take for a liter of water on average to boil, because that's going to tell us how much time we're going to spend boiling water and some of the heat capacity of those items, okay? Some of the boiling features are going to be adjusted depending on your elevation, okay? Burn time is also going to be pretty important because that's going to tell you how long that your stove is going to burn based on one container of fuel. Okay. That may change a little bit if you have the ability to purchase your own fuel containers, if it requires a standard hookup, what type of fuel that you're using. And then there's a few other technologies, like there's jet boil features that will allow them to be integrated into the stove system for faster boiling times and things like that, depending on where you're at. So it might compensate for the altitude and temperature changes that you're dealing with. Okay. All right, that's all I had. David, did you have anything to add to camp stoves?
I think you covered it.
I had to miss something. Okay.
I'd say the biggest thing is just knowing the difference of cartridge versus liquid fuel. Just make sure you understand that.
Yeah, I think the fuel type are typically the things that they'll play around with. A lot of the scenarios will change what temperature or altitude that you're working at. And you'll really have to pay attention to those details in the scenario criteria. Okay. All right, let me work on getting our scenario pulled up. Okay. Yeah, let me get my timer set. All right. So y'all will have 6 minutes starting now. All right, y'all have 2 more minutes. All right, 1 more minute. All right, y'all, time is up. If y'all will do me a favor and go ahead and put your rankings in the chat box and then use the annotation feature to mark the product you think is the best fit for this scenario. All right. All right, so the official placing that we got was 4132 on this one. So what makes 4 the most suitable product for this scenario? What were we looking for? Y'all can unmute, use the chat box, whatever y'all need to do.
Well, he only had $50. Yeah, so.
Yep, so based on this one, we had a hard budget of $50, so that was a big factor.
And it also said it was windproof.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna pick on Brady and Landry. What were some of the other factors that we were looking for here? Okay, we needed a pot stabilizer. Let's see, tray, what else did we need to keep an eye out for? Okay, it needed to be lightweight. And then what was a key factor with ice fishing? What was one of the main things we had to watch out for with that? Yep, it's going to be super cold. Okay, so we had to keep an eye on our temperature and what types of fuels that we can use for that. Okay. All right. So let's see, I'm going to pick on David again. David, do you want to explain why you placed 4 over 1 in the top pair?
Sure. So in the top pair, item number 4 had the 1 pot meal, I guess, like preparability more than it did item number 1 because it came with that 1 pot with the purchase, as well as it had a specific stand for the second, or a different pot rather than setting it on, I guess, the opposite burner as you would on item number 1. Item number 4 also had the what was it? I believe item number 4 was more lightweight than item number 1, but I need to double check.
Say nothing like being put on the spot with your notes.
Yeah, sorry. Overall, I think it was just the pot stabilizer as well as the wind protection that the number 4 had integrated compared to item number 1 with just having the winch screens.
Okay. All right, I'm going to run through my notes real quick too. So we had that product number 4 is designed to boil water faster. It's windproof instead of having a true windscreen on it. It has a protective bag. It doesn't operate with butane gas, which is the one that we had to watch out for in this temperature. It's very durable. It's got a heat protectant coating and more safety features for it as well. Okay. All right. So when we're comparing our middle pair, what 2 products would be in the middle pair and why would we place number 1 over product number 3? Looks like I need to provide more clarification. Okay, so our 2 main products that are in our middle pair in this scenario would be product number 1 and product number 3. Okay, our official product placing was 4, 1, 3, 2. Why would we choose to place number 1 over product number 3? Okay, someone said they thought that 3 was better. That's okay. Okay. Try and look at the 2 product descriptions and see what y'all think might be better about product number 1 over number 2. Okay. And David says item number 1 had the ability to rest a pot safely on the icy lake, while item number 3 didn't have that capability. Okay. There's a couple more details that I want y'all to try and catch on this one. I'll give you just another minute to figure it out and then I'll go over them. All right, so 1's a little bit cheaper than 3, so that might be a factor, okay? So there's a couple of details on here. So on product number 3, we have the note that fuel is sold separately. So it would also be an additional expense beyond the $45. Okay. It has pot supports directly above the flame, but it does not meet the requirement for Mr. Farmer to be able to rest the hot pot safely on the icy lake while he's continuing to use the flame. Okay. And then as far as safety features go, you could argue or criticize product number 3 in that it really doesn't have a whole lot of safety features with it. So product number 1 has a windscreen around it. And then product number 3 is kind of basically just an open flame sitting there. Okay. Does that make a little bit more sense? You don't have any other questions about those 2 products? All right. Okay, and then why was product number 2 placed last? Yep, basically it got thrown out of the running on this one because we had a hard budget that said we needed to stay under $50, okay? All right, so I think we don't really have time to go over another scenario or another category. We've got about 10 minutes left. Do y'all have any questions about the products, or would y'all like to discuss anything else tonight? All right. I think we'll go ahead and stay on for a few more minutes just in case anyone wants to discuss anything. Other than that, thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it, y'all.
Hey, David, don't leave. I would like to ask Mellanie a couple of 4-H Foundation scholarship questions if we can after she quits recording.
Absolutely. Let me stop that recording now.